Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew, and welcome to Crypto Talks by Playground Plus, where we take an unbiased and objective approach to talk about cryptocurrencies, blockchain technology, and current events to bring you the latest news and information in this evolving industry. On each episode, we'll bring entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and innovators to share their ideas and experiences, to gain valuable insights and takeaways on this space that is truly changing the world. Today, we have a special segment with two incredible guests. We have Scarlett and Annalese, also known as Bitcoin Queen on social media, two strong women technology entrepreneurs based in Miami dedicated to advancing and promoting blockchain technology with a local approach. Their latest initiative is Bitbasel, which is an education platform with a series of events that bring artists and collaborators together to create and distribute non-fungible tokens, or NFTs, as we like to know them. Bitbasel has been a key force present through activations and coverages in some of Miami's latest current events, including the recent Miami Bitcoin Conference, which is the largest gathering in the world to talk about and share about Bitcoin, and the Miami Art Basel, which is the largest art exhibition event in the United States that takes place every December. Both Scarlett and Annalese are truly invested in local communities, positioning Miami as a true technology hub. They appear constantly on local and national news outlets, on events, and many which include participation with Miami's Mayor Francis Suarez, who himself is a very strong advocate of blockchain technology and what it can do for local and state governments. Now, guys, before we get started, please remember this is not financial advice. We're going to be talking about some economic indicators, pricing, and so forth. So please take that into consideration. Don't forget to like us and follow us on Playground Plus to get more incredible content. And for more information on Scarlett, Annalese, and Bitbasel and all their incredible endeavors, please look below to get more information on them. So Scarlett and Annalese, it's a great honor and pleasure to have you today.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you. Big welcome from Miami, Florida.
That's right, for sure. So, the idea today is just to basically talk a little bit about your experiences. And I think the first approach is, since you're so heavily vested into this space, why Bitcoin? Why blockchain? What got you so involved in the space from the get-go? What drives you to be such strong advocates for this space?
Scarlett, you can go ahead and answer that one first. You're more interesting than I am.
Wow, I love that question, actually, because it really describes us in a nutshell. Here in Miami, we really want to be innovators and really taking this technology to the masses in terms of how can we engage the community and learn about blockchain. And the way we approach this is through the arts. Now, we're here in Wynwood. Wynwood is an art district, which is part of Miami, and is often known for its Wynwood colorful walls of graffitis. So last year, we decided to empower the artists themselves about learning about blockchain and the new technology, in this case, non-functional tokens. And we thought, wow, this is a great way to bring art tech to Miami and really highlight the technology and the innovation aspect, combining the design district. I'm all about the artist's approach, and I thought, wow, this is a great way to engage the community, learning about the technology and also empowering the artists themselves and getting to know what is blockchain. Now, I personally got into blockchain because I thought that was a really interesting technology that really deals with different aspects of, in my particular case, I wanted to learn about cryptology and smart contracts on my personal skill set. Now, my background is actually architecture and geospatial science, so I have to do with a lot of creative assets. And I thought blockchain was such a great tool to really protect my digital assets when I wanted to showcase to a particular client. But we all know the blockchain can be used also as the finance aspect to that technology. So, but we're here in Miami wanting to educate and empower the people with this type of knowledge. So we decided to do Bitbasel, we transfer over to what is the NFT space, and that's a great space to be in if you're dealing with digital assets. And this happened last year of 2020, and because of COVID, we thought this is a great opportunity to borrow the local artists and also to learn the technology itself. So, I personally love how this technology really has accelerated everything and has really adopted by the masses.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's very interesting how your personal history has been has led you to this crossroads of art and technology. You did mention Miami, and obviously it's where you guys are focusing on. And as a segue to lead on to the next question, we hear Miami a lot in the news recently, especially for the past 6 months. Everybody wants to come to Miami. We are all based in Miami, all three of us. Do you truly think? Do you truly share that vision that Miami is becoming this new technology hub? Are there real opportunities there, or are there challenges also? What's your stance on this?
Well, Miami is a very unique place, in my opinion. Miami has always been a city kind of focused more on service, a little bit construction. It's been a huge city built off immigration, and it's been a touristy vacation town. But Miami has a technological side as well, and it's one of the few cities around the world that's recognized for their art. So I think that NFT technology fits perfectly within the realms of the city. Between the mayor being super bullish on Bitcoin and blockchain technology and seeing the ways that it can innovate and help push the city forward, it can attract people from the financial industry, anywhere from New York to Silicon Valley, as we see a lot of people flocking from these areas, especially throughout this period of time with COVID, a lot of people being out of the office, a lot of things being remote. Miami is one of those nice vacation towns where people don't mind working out of their high rise on a Friday afternoon. And I think it's a different environment. New York has always been, the place that's go-to for business. But I think the city of New York has kind of been dying down in terms of business. Everyone who goes there, I'll be going there myself probably at the end of this year, but anyone who I hear that goes and comes from the city of New York says it's not the same. And I think that it's always good to have some room for change. And I think Miami can be that change. I definitely think that California has always been one of the other, leading tech hubs around the country, being on the West Coast. But me personally, Miami has always been home, and I want to see that innovation and that those jobs, those opportunities brought to my city. And I think that now more than ever is a prime opportunity. We see people in Latin America adopting this technology, and Miami being the gateway to Latin America is also very important in this particular use case. So I think that Miami is ready to take on, new business, new innovation, new tech, and just push forward.
Yeah, I'm sold. I think if we had put a link to sell homes right now with your answer, we probably would have sold at least 100 homes in that last minute. So agreed. I think Miami is the perfect convergence of art and technology, and you just emphasize it elaborately. So it totally makes sense. So obviously we're talking about blockchain and crypto, and this is our very first episode of our Crypto Talk segments. How would you describe, obviously everybody's talking about blockchain. The other day, my mom and my aunt were like, oh, you have to give us a little speech on what Bitcoin is. And everybody and their mother's talking about it. And people misconstrue and lose value, and they don't understand where the real underlying value of cryptocurrencies are and blockchain technology. And I think there's a lot of myth around it. And obviously right now, everything revolves around the price and making, a lot of money. Where is the real value of this? Where is, there's the token component, and then there's also the underlying blockchain technology. If you could explain to our audiences that maybe are hopping on that are not too savvy on this space, is there like a brief description of what it is and where you really see the value in the future of what this really means and how it can help mankind and the future for ourselves and for everybody?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Scarlett. You can answer that one.
Yeah, no, definitely. I really want to emphasize the difference. I think most people often confuse a digital currency with blockchain. So when we talk about crypto, we're actually talking about a digital currency. And when we're talking about blockchain, we're actually talking about the technology itself. So in this case, let's say Bitcoin, which is a digital currency, it is a type of that uses blockchain as the technology. And think about a currency or tokens as community. So, Bitcoin has been around the longest, and which is why it has the longest history and the biggest community, because you have the people's buy-in. So as the community grows, then it kind of validates the exchange of these currency. So as we start seeing more and more people adopting crypto in the industry, we're starting to see this in the retail space. We're starting to hear this with that PayPal is starting to accept crypto, meaning you can buy and sell crypto. Cash App and other retail companies are aligned to use it. Here in Miami, Emeritus Francis Suarez is even pushing the idea of small businesses accepting crypto. So Miami's been very, very progressive in terms of the digital currency aspect. That means that people can use crypto to buy goods and services with that. But be mindful, again, when you're acquisitioning any digital currency, you have to do your due diligence, and meaning you have to research which currency you want to acquisition. And it's definitely the best way to do it is like to either look and figure out what is the difference in value. So, as we start adopting different type of currency, there's a plethora of different type. So it really comes down on what you find valuable. A lot of people are kind of hesitant because they hear, am I going to get scammed with this and so forth. Again, when you're investing in cryptocurrency, definitely do the due diligence as to how much you want to invest. Don't definitely think it's a quick way to make money. It's like any other currency. It's very volatile. It's very true with any currency, unless it's a stable coin of sorts. But in this case, definitely to adopt the digital currency, there's definitely ways to do it. Again, I would research as to which currency you want to value or which one you want to buy. A diversified portfolio is always best. But again, here at Bitbasel, we're not a financial advisor. I specialize more on the technology end, meaning learning about how to set up the wallet. What is a wallet? What is a blockchain? What is DeFi and so forth? That's more on the technology end. But definitely here in Miami, we've been very receptive to the type of different currency as well as the blockchain integration. But I would
like to expand on that a little bit. So as we know, Bitcoin is kind of the first of its kind, but also not really. Bitcoin was born out of the 2008 recession that came about from the housing market crash, which is when banks were basically lending out an insane amount of mortgages out to homeowners that they knew they couldn't pay back. But that wasn't the first attempt for humans trying to dissociate financials from the government. The financial system has been taking a toll for a long time, pretty much since the 70s here in the US, due to the lack of, banking or backing from the dollar and the reserve. We often hear, oh, well, the US is backed by the military. Well, it used to be backed by gold a really long time ago. And the gold standard since then has then expired. There's nothing that's really backing the dollar today besides numbers in the back of a computer. So because of that, there's been multiple attempts in the past, whether it's the Patriot dollar, PayPal tried it, DigiCash was another one that's been emerging since the 90s. And Bitcoin was really the first one that got it right. And that's kind of why it started an entire movement from detaching yourself financially from government standards. So when you look at Bitcoin, you simply see another form of, investment or using money, because that's how really the wealthiest people in the world, that's how they make money. They don't they use their money, but they invest their money. They make their money work for them. And that's essentially what Bitcoin does as a deflationary asset. The US dollar is inflationary, which is why right now we're up 5.4% facing inflation for the year. We see gas prices going up. Lumber is expensive. Things are reaching all-time highs. So because of that, Bitcoin has kind of changed the tone and the medium of how we see assets. As of right now, Bitcoin is seen as a store of value. It's not something that you can just go to the store and spend due to the way that the United States has it listed. It's listed as property. It's a digital asset. And because the way that taxation works, you are subject to a 40% capital gains tax if you did, in fact, make some gains on top of your Bitcoin. It's also a little expensive to move Bitcoin around when you're thinking about, moving it or spending the dollar versus spending Bitcoin. And for that reason, it's not necessarily user-friendly at the moment to use in your everyday life. There are a couple things that you can go around and mitigate those taxes and using Bitcoin and trying to stay within the Bitcoin ecosystem. Because as long as you don't convert back to USD, you're not faced with taxation. And those are things like Bitrefill, where you can buy gift cards with Bitcoin. But it's not everyday user friendly. There's other, until we get to the point where cryptocurrencies specifically aren't seen as property, there's not really a way around that. The only other thing that people can use that it still stays within the realms of crypto, that they can go back and forth and not necessarily face any taxation on top of what already should be there, would be in stable coins, because it's pegged directly to a dollar, and since there's no increase or decrease in value, then you're not necessarily subject to a capital gain or a capital loss.
Right. Yeah. Brilliant. Yes, this is so interesting, and we're seeing it. We're living through it right now after COVID with the stimulus packages, and we're seeing the effects right now of the inflation. And it goes exactly as an example of one of the key fundamental values of Bitcoin. So you would say, would it be fair to say that you stick to your guns to say that Bitcoin could be or is the truly digital gold as a store of value, as an asset? And maybe down the road, as we continue to evolve and adopt these evolving and growing currencies, perhaps a stable coin, a Litecoin, or the altcoins themselves, an Ethereum or a Cardano, could they truly become currencies? Is that how are they different? How are they similar? And again, I think it's important just to, now that we're talking about the asset value, Annalese, and that was great, because a lot of people, they still don't understand the true value or how to use these currencies. So if they're not real currencies, which are currencies and which are not, and where do you see it going? So, our audience and people listening can really have an idea of what truly could work for each person, depending on, their case by case and what it is that they're looking for. Are they looking for an investment to capitalize an asset value, or are they looking for a transactional mechanism to make life easier, right? Where do you see the similarities and the difference between the Bitcoin and the others?
So Bitcoin is, again, like I mentioned earlier, right now seen as a store of value only because of the way that it's, taxed upon. In a country like El Salvador, where they're making it the, legally, they're going about the Bitcoin standard and making Bitcoin one of the official, assets used within the government and official currency of the country. At that point in time, it functions a little different, and it becomes easier for people to use it, every day, whether it's, now merchants have to accept it, to you're not necessarily faced with, taxes when the price rises. Because those are really the issues that we're facing currently. So I guess to break it down, Bitcoin is probably the single most gaining. I'm sorry, hold on, my dog Trunks. Hi, give me 1 second. Hello, walk over here. Thank you.
I guess I could finish our conversation. Yeah, definitely.
I'm back.
Your mind is back. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so let me rewind that. Okay, so Bitcoin is seen as, like I mentioned earlier, as a store of value. And for countries like El Salvador, where they're implementing that currency as the official, government currency of the country and official tender, at that point in time, the taxation works a little differently, where it doesn't necessarily, penalize people as to owning property or having that 40%, capital gains tax. At that point in time, it's a little different. So until we get there, we can't necessarily use it as quote unquote money just because it's not friendly. Now, I did mention earlier that as long as you stay within the Bitcoin ecosystem, you're not necessarily taxed upon any gains that you make, because you're not necessarily switching back into US dollar. And if that's the case, now you look at a country like El Salvador, where if they are legally accepting Bitcoin, then that means their merchants are accepting Bitcoin. And at that point in time, they're staying within the Bitcoin ecosystem, and they're not necessarily faced with the same litigation that we are here in the US. So the key differences between Bitcoin and a lot of these other cryptocurrencies. So Bitcoin is unique, one, because it's the first one, but it's also one that kind of focuses on financial structure and the financial well-being. There's other coins that have came along and have tried to mimic that, but in reality, kind of having a co-founder or having a founder or having a CEO kind of takes away from the magic that's behind Bitcoin, which I know nobody really knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is. And it kind of gives some leadway for the government to say, hey, you can't make a security, you're going against the US dollar. Because that's what's happened in the past with some of these other attempts that we've had for people trying to, separate, banking from the government. So there was always a founder, or something wasn't done right. Bitcoin was kind of the first one that got away with it, and it kind of opened a can of worms, because everything was on the blockchain, everything was anonymous, but there's still a face to who did what. Ultimately, as long as people agree to transact on a network, then that's just it. They're transacting on a network. But do I think that any of these other currencies can pull off what Bitcoin did in El Salvador? Probably not. So, I mean, it's a free-for-all. It's a wild, wild west out here in the cryptocurrency space. If another currency, you can, trade it and make money, then that's fine. But in terms of, holding value and holding assets for long periods of time, Bitcoin's kind of the way to go. Ethereum can fail, which it's had, hiccups in the past. Cardano can fail, which they don't have smart contracts yet. But if Bitcoin fails, that's not okay. Everyone goes home. This all shuts down. So there's a different narrative that comes into play when it comes to Bitcoin. So those are my thoughts on usability and functionality until eventually, let's say, the government accepts Bitcoin as a legal form of tender. But do I think that's going to happen in first world countries? Probably not. What's happening right now, for example, in China, is that they are on a race to have their digital currency. As of last year, the US also has been in conversation with making a digital dollar. So what's happening is that basically governments are looking at what's happening. They're looking at this technology and they're going, hey, we can have a completely digital system online, which reduces overhead. It reduces, the need of money distribution, robberies. At that point in time, really what we need to worry about is cybersecurity and, hackers, which, I mean, if you're doing stuff on a government, there's certain, protocols and levels and security mechanisms, firewalls that they have put in place to mitigate things that would kind of overtake the system and, stuff of that nature. So I don't think that Bitcoin's necessarily going to take over as a currency. And I don't think any of the other currencies will either. What governments will do is that they'll implement their own digital dollar. Smaller countries like we see in El Salvador, developing countries, they could probably adopt the Bitcoin standard. But I don't think that any of the leading countries will do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned, talking about governments wanting to create their own digital currency. Ultimately, if it's not running on true blockchain technology and it's not truly decentralized, then it's just the digital dollar. It's just the digital token equivalent of the real dollar that can be printed and created and manipulated. So it goes against the whole true decentralized system that blockchain stands for. You mentioned regulation and acceptance, and I think that's a very critical point. You know, El Salvador, those news, Paraguay very recently announcing that they're also going to allow Bitcoin, but they're going to tag their the regulatory for tax purposes to the U.S. system. Then you have countries like England, you know, going against Binance. Tesla as a company, as a private organization, first vouching, and Elon Musk saying, hey, we're going to accept Bitcoin. You can buy your Teslas with Bitcoin. And then only a few weeks later saying, oh, we're not going to accept it because of the green mining. The whole acceptance of Bitcoin truly is interesting. And you know, I think everybody's very curious to see where regulation and where mass adoption will go. But yeah, I definitely think you've hit on amazing points. Scarlett, I don't know if you have anything that comes to mind also on regulation or mass adoption, or for the good or for the bad.
Yeah, I think what's happening here in Latin America specifically, that's not gonna be the first countries adopting a digital currency. So as more countries are now accepting this as an alternative method, we can definitely see more innovation coming throughout that. So what does that mean for here in the United States? Does that mean it's going to replace the dollar? No, not at all. It is options that people can utilize. So now you have an option. So the good thing about for instance, any digital currency is the ability to exchange it very quickly. Oftentimes, if it's a dollar, it has to go through a transactional, through a banking system that may delay. So let's say if I want to send funds, large amounts of funds to one country to another, it's much easier to do it as a digital currency than it is, let's say, gold or a fiat. You know, so that is also one of the reason a lot of these countries are saying, well, you know, if we start adopting, we can actually do much faster exchanges between countries. And that's where I see a lot of more transactional happening. But when it comes to Bitcoin, think of it more of as a generation wealth. You know, it's not really intended for the day-to-day. It's more like long-term investment. So this idea of it, you know, constantly exchanging, although a lot of people do that, you know, you definitely make more over time. We see that, especially is true this year when, you know, compared to last year, at one point it was under 5K and then it just skyrocketed earlier this year. But there's different factors. You don't see that with the dollar. The dollar obviously is more it's stable, but it is less volatile than it is than a digital currency. But like Annalese mentioned, when like countries like China adopting a digital currency, and it's allowing the country to do larger transaction, you know, that's definitely a big push for the United States, at least, to look and consider how transactions are done on a global scope. We want to stay competitive, and other countries see that as a way to stay competitive. So we're definitely going to start seeing more other countries using a digital currency as an alternative as well.
Sure. And that also ties in not just the adoption and the acceptance and the regulatory component, but there's also a key catalyst right now that's been happening with the mining, right? You know, mining and the banning of China of mining pools and all those huge operations, and they're shutting down. Where are those really going? Are those really going to move? I mean, we know that big mining pools are up in the northern countries where the weather is permissible, where there's green mining. So there are a lot of things related to mining and acceptance and making cryptocurrencies even more mainstream, right? Where do you see this ban on China? Do you truly see or foresee that that's going to move to the US, to Latin America? How are countries going to see this as an opportunity? And is green mining really that important? And we touched upon Tesla recently and Elon Musk and his decision to to retract on accepting the Bitcoin as a purchase mechanism for Tesla, just because of the green mining and making sure that the Bitcoin being used comes from a green source, right? Do you see any significant changes on that area?
So first and foremost, I'd kind of like to say that although there has been a lot of kind of, in my opinion, FUD around mining of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, in my opinion.
Let me interrupt you right there. Tell the audience what FUD is, because I don't know if everybody knows. FUD is a very crypto lingo.
Yeah, FUD is basically fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That also comes from just traditional financial markets. Right. FUD usually happens when news is spread to kind of create uncertainty with related topics, and it kind of either creates kind of like slander, spew. It's anything that has to do with just messing with the bias and perspective of the general audience. That would be FUD. So Bitcoin itself is very it's proof of work. Any Bitcoin mining is proof of work, which means it's very electricity heavy, which at that point in time, you use machines such as GPUs or CPUs or ASIC miners or mining rigs, and you are using power to create hash rates, which then outputs to solving math problems, which then you get your Bitcoin. That's essentially the process that mining goes through. For the first time in history, China is under 50% hash rate. Most of the mining has come from China, and due to the government telling electrical companies, there's not really a ban on mining. What it is that the government is telling electrical companies to not let miners use or stop cutting deals with miners, basically, because what was happening is miners would cut deals with electrical companies. And because China is trying to be carbon neutral by the year 2060, they're trying to tell electrical companies like, hey, don't cut deals with these people. We don't want, them using up all this electricity to mine in efforts to go towards greener mining. But overall, I think that, Bitcoin, as innovative as a technology as it is, Bitcoin was essentially made to save people from the financial burden of inflation and governments. Nobody actually wants to harm the environment when it comes to mining. Bitcoin is probably the single most lucrative point of electricity generated for monetary consumption. There's nothing in the world that uses electricity as efficiently as Bitcoin. You put $200,000 of electricity in, you get $1 million of value back. Nothing else is like that. So I mean, what's happening is they're trying to force a lot of these companies that are not necessarily, let's say, green, to use green methods, because there are companies that are still mining in China, and not all mining has left China. But those are companies that are using, like I said, let's say solar, wind, water, different methods of electricity generation. But I did hear, actually, as of today, that in Ohio, what's happening is now these miners are leaving China, and they're kind of like pulling one. The United States is kind of pulling one over on them. In Ohio, there was announced today that there will be nuclear mining. And that actually would generate a whole lot more Bitcoin than a lot of these other mining facilities. Because I mean, nuclear does generate a lot of electricity. And it's not necessarily, quote unquote, green energy. I mean, nuclear is what we use now. We have a lot of nuclear power plants here in Miami. For example, we have Turkey Point. I mean, we're not necessarily probably not going to face, a catastrophic event like something like Chernobyl, where a nuclear reactor blows up and, now the entire state of Florida is basically uninhabitable. But I mean, at that point in time, we're looking at something that, again, is you're using X amount of electricity, but you're getting so much more value back. So in my opinion, Bitcoin mining by far is probably the greenest use of electricity, whether it's, solar power, wind, you name it, in my opinion, just because of the value that's extracted and put back into the economy and put back into the pockets of people. Elon Musk, going back on, his whole thing with Tesla, I mean, I have my fair share of fair opinions when it comes to celebrities. And it's that if you're going to come into an industry, make sure you know what you're talking about before you kind of just, put yourself out there. And it's kind of what we've seen happen. We saw someone that came in pro Bitcoin, pro crypto, and then they're like, oh, wait, no, Dogecoin, because Bitcoin is expensive and not everyone can get it. And then he just kept flip-flopping around. And that kind of stuff shows that there's probably a little bit of lack of education in that sense of, how this whole ecosystem works and fits in, versus we see someone like Michael Saylor, who I feel like has done his due diligence in learning every aspect of how Bitcoin can be positive from companies to countries like El Salvador, who for the first time don't need to adhere to the American reserve or go to the British pound. They have their own option to get away from both these monetary systems. For the longest, we've always seen the United States go to war and try to implement fractional banking in places, and that no longer seems to be something that people feel like they need to flock towards. So, I mean, that's to me is empowering. And as a country, I feel like that's something that, most people should look into doing when it comes to, shifting and mitigating inflation. But, mining is crucial to the Bitcoin network. Proof of work is probably never going to go away when it comes to Bitcoin, but I mean, overall, I think mining, for what you're generating, for all the other things that we waste electricity on, literally waste, I think that Bitcoin mining is probably the most lucrative and best way to spend electricity. And a lot of Bitcoin mining in general, it's renewable energy. There aren't really a lot of companies out there that are on purpose, trying to harm the environment with Bitcoin mining. The goal is to have the most revenue generated from your machines, really. And that includes your electricity cost. That includes your overhead. So of course, they're going to try to find the cheapest version of electricity, which usually is, any off waste, any secondary electricity, any green electricity if it's available. That's usually what they're going to do first. So I mean, overall, companies usually do their due diligence to either use secondary electrical what's it called? Oh gosh, I forgot the name to it. I just got blank, but what I mean by that is for example, there was in Texas at a oil farm, they were pumping oil from the ground, and inside the oil rigs there was miners using the secondary carbon output. There we go, carbon output from the oil rigs to mine Bitcoin. Right. That was secondary electricity being used. That's how a lot of mining works. There are a lot of people try to do that. So I mean, there's not that many people just mining crypto out of their homes. That's not something that we see very often, just because you could literally put your house on fire because you're just pulling so much stuff from grids. And I mean, it's just not. I feel like we're way past that. China going now for the first time under 50% hash rate, that only makes the network more decentralized. And again, people are going to try to find the cheapest ways to mine Bitcoin, which means cheaper electricity, which means chances are it's, extra electricity, cutting deals with electrical companies while, homes, let's say people are using electricity the least, because electrical companies do waste electricity. If electricity doesn't go unused, it's basically waste, and that happens. And by selling it to these companies to mine Bitcoin, or giving them a discount, or having them mine at certain times of the day where it's better for the environment, or whatever it is, that's usually what common practice already is. And I think the idea that Bitcoin uses a lot of electricity to mine is a statement, and it's completely different from where is this electricity being generated from. I think that people are focused on the fact that Bitcoin uses a lot of electricity and not where the electricity is being sourced from.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. So to touch back upon Bitbasel, and we've talked about today the cryptocurrency's underlying value, a little bit on blockchain. mining and adoption. Part of this ecosystem, as it has evolved, a new creation is the NFT, right? The non-fungible token. I would say it's one of the most, not newest, but it's one of the ones that has gotten more fame, or at least on the mainstream media, right? With all the artists coming out and everybody and their mother now wants to have an NFT, from celebrities to companies like Anheuser-Busch today announced that they want to do their NFTs as well for the Blue Night. So, where is the value in an NFT? And I think, and again, just like crypto in general and blockchain, a lot of people really don't understand where the value in an NFT comes from. What is the value proposition? If I were to tell somebody, hey, get into NFTs, or not just as a creator, but even as an investor, right? So where is a true line fundamental in an NFT, and how you as Bitbasel, where did you see that value, and how do you see yourself promoting that and positioning yourself in this space as it continues to grow?
Yeah, absolutely. So the real value about the NFT is protecting your digital assets. Now, what a lot of the artists, singers, people in music industry, anybody who's creating, because there's a huge uplift of creators. We live in a generation of creators. We all have to protect those digital assets, and that has a wide spectrum. And what we're seeing here is that, some people are actually creating NFT just to protect their digital assets. But of course, a lot of the artists are utilizing it to put it on an auction house, and also and to kind of help promote their work of art, because it adds value. When it comes to artists in any digital workspace, artwork in general, and this is also true with the music industry, is all speculative. So the value itself, in terms of the monetary value, again, is very speculative. So it could go up and down depending on the artist. And but you don't necessarily have to be a famous artist to get into space and actually be able to sell it at a really good price. That all depends. But for me, again, it's more of like, how am I going to protect my digital asset and from being stolen or taken? So remember, what is an NFT, a non-functional token? So they're basically are attached to a smart contract, and based on the type of smart contract you put on the NFT, then you can put it on a different type of marketplace, or distribute it differently. So again, here at Bitbasel, what we do, not only do we help educate you, help you produce NFTs, but we also have like an NFT lawyer on staff that helps you with the IP aspect, because a lot of the NFT world, they only understand the technology, but don't understand the copyright issues that may involve, and that's more of the legal aspects to that. So, and that's one of the going to be a really big issue for a lot of people creating NFTs randomly, that may have a copyright issue and then mint it, and in the end it could cause them a trouble. So that's a use case of, definitely do your due diligence, making sure that whatever digital asset you're creating is also seen by an NFT lawyer. And here at Bitbasel, we do offer that as well. But the NFT world is actually huge. It's not only into in the artwork. There's something called metaverse, and the metaverse is really a virtual reality platform that is also involved in the blockchain. An example of this is like Decentraland, CryptoVoxel, and so forth. Sandbox is another one. So these are like virtual reality platforms that also use the blockchain. You might have heard about somebody selling a a parcel, a digital home, for like $250,000. So that goes to show where the world is really heading. This idea of the intersection of blockchain and XR, which is the virtual reality component to the NFT world. And we're going to also start seeing this in other sectors like esports, games and music, and even about security, like how do you protect your face from being stolen? If you're an actor or actress, you want to make sure that your digital profile isn't stolen. So you can also put that as an NFT. But again, NFT, we're just starting. I mean, the NFT world is huge, and we're starting to see a lot of use cases for an NFT. Everything from real estate to music and audible drops. That's another thing I would love to touch base on. A lot of people who are getting into NFTs are starting to hear what are auto drops. And these are digital assets that if you open an application, you could actually obtain if you're in certain locations. So geolocation is a big component to that. So that incentivizes a lot of, for us, when we do activation, you get an exclusive drop if you're participating in the actual physical location. We specialize more in the hybrid model, meaning like a lot of our activation is in person, and but it has the digital component because we also showcase a lot of our NFT online. So you get the mix of both. So this is great because the world is global. So even regardless what part of the world, you can still get to engage in our events, even though we're here in Wynwood, virtually. Or if you're, let's say, we did one for Miami Music Week, where we did the Ultra Angel, which is part of the Ultra, and we created NFT for them. So that was a good use case of that, where you had to be a participant at our Bitbasel event in order to obtain these NFTs. We're starting to see this also in an enterprise level, where movies are getting into NFT space. So if you go into a premiere to a movie, you get exclusive NFT, participate. So again, it's still early on, and I'm excited because as we progress, we're going to start seeing a lot of different use cases of how this market is expanding. So, this is where we're at right now. Definitely encourage anybody who's into the NFT, look into also the metaverses out there, and see how the NFT world exhibits their NFTs in a virtual platform. So that's quite exciting. And also wearable NFTs is a thing as well. We're seeing this in clothing lines where you could actually get the garment and the NFT with that item. So that's also exciting. We saw this with Coach. Coach utilizes those NFT that were particular because it's a way to verify that is indeed a actual Coach product. And if you buy the Coach product, you get the NFT. So again, it's how you always write the smart contract, and how people utilize it for auction house or sales or trade.
Okay. Listen, this is so interesting. And it's the beauty of it is how all this underlies on the blockchain network, right? And the smart contract, and that's how NFTs were born. Before we finish the segment, I don't know if you have, you especially these past few months, you have been incredibly busy with the Miami conference, with the Miami Bitcoin conference. Preparing all the Art Basel events that you have, the Bitbasel events that you have participated in. Any particular takeaways, messages that or insights that you have picked up over the last few months, or any significant, boom, eureka moment that you would like to share with our audiences? So our audiences at Playground are creatives as well, innovators, and truly passionate about these matters, and that's the idea, to make them, to empower them and be able to communicate with them what you people like yourselves, entrepreneurs in technology, are. You're feeling the pulse of what's really happening in this evolving industry, and the idea is for that, to communicate if you have any last thoughts or any word of advice, what would it be?
Word of advice, last thoughts, always do your own research. Never rely on, just articles that you read or things that you see on the internet, or taking someone's, word for what you think could be correct. Always do your due diligence. That's probably the most important thing in this space, because this is how you end up getting scammed or losing your money, or if you're not careful, it's very easy to make a mistake. And I mean, just always be true to yourself. Blockchain technology has a lot of use cases, a lot of things that you can do with it. And kind of like Scarlett mentioned earlier in the series or in the episode, she said that cryptocurrency and blockchain, they're different. They're not synonymous. So because of that, make sure check to see what you can do with this technology. Essentially, at its core, blockchain is just a database that's immutable, and there's a lot of things that you can build on top of it, whether it's gaming or building a real estate product, or building an art project, or building, some kind of social token, which is probably what's going to be up and coming next. As we see this whole thing with NFTs, I think social tokens is definitely going to be the next wave that we'll be seeing. But yeah, always do your research, do your due diligence, understand the space, and don't be afraid to ask questions, because this isn't easy. This space was built upon developers. And it's for me, you, and everyone in between to kind of understand, digest, and put it out into the world and make a better place.
Yeah. And I would love to add to that. Definitely, if you want to find out more about the NFT, come and check out our website, bitbasel.miami. And we do have information videos of how to, what, where, and when, what are NFTs, how to engage, and so forth. And also a list of all our activations. We have activations throughout the year, which you can participate and engage and have more of the one-on-one. Sometimes being at these events and actually getting is the easy entry point. So I always tell, when it comes to technology, the best way of learning is going and doing it and learning how to do it yourself. And we're always here for those who are need more information of a particular technology, and especially since we understand a lot of people don't know blockchain, but that's why we're here. The workshops, the hackathons, these are great ways as an entry point to start engaging what is blockchain and even the NFT. And you will be surprised once you get into NFTs, other aspects of blockchain, it might also interest you. And so, for instance, smart contracts, we get a lot of lawyers who are interested in learning about the smart contracts. So we definitely could help educate that as well. So, but definitely, like Annalese says, do the due diligence in terms of how to get into the space, try out a different type of open platforms, and just check out our website and see how the simple tutorials of the fundamentals of NFT space.
For sure. Well, listen, this has been an incredible segment. I think we're paving the right the right approach and the right way for this Crypto Talks series. Starting off right on setting up a high benchmark. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have you two on board. From my person and on behalf of Playground Plus, we'd love to have you here. For everybody listening and watching, feel free to look for more information on Annalese and Scarlett's endeavors. Everybody, thank you so much. Stay safe, and catch you on the next one.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. See ya.